Welcome back. Vladimir Putin, in his end-of-year meeting with his defense chief last week, stated that Russia today is stronger now than any potential aggressor. While Putin might deny seeing the United States as a potential foe, Donald Trump has Americans raising questions about the possibility of a new nuclear arms race. Ken, are we facing the beginning of a new Cold War?
You know, I oftentimes wonder if the Cold War ever really ended for Russia, because there has always been in the background that tension. And, you know, I mean, the USSR collapsed, the Berlin Wall fell, but Russia is still a superpower. Russia still competes with us on a global scale. Correct me if I'm wrong on this, Russia is the #1 oil producer in the world. Is that correct?
We are actually...
Well, we actually overtook them very recently.
Yes.
But before that, it was Russia. You know, there's big money in oil, and the fact that, you know, now we're neck and neck with Russia for oil production, that's huge. So I would say, I don't know if it's ever actually ended.
Well, and I think you brought up a couple of very good points, and I think what we shouldn't forget also, and is very important, is Russia is run by a former KGB colonel.
Yeah.
So the actions from the Kremlin are always played from a Cold War paradigm. The same calculations that were made throughout the Soviet Union are being made now in terms of their approach to geopolitics. And I think the Russian approach, unlike ours, is much more calculated. We may disagree with their motives and their goals, but they're much more disciplined in the way they approach things. Now,
are they disciplined because he has the final word? He has the first and the final word? You hear from no one else in Russia.
Well, Russia is not a democracy.
But that's the point.
Yes.
And is that what we're trying to do here with the president-elect, thinking that there is no democracy, that he has the first word, the tweet, and the final word? I mean, come on now.
Twitter diplomacy.
No, and you are absolutely correct. But I think to some degree, look, we outspent the Russians in the 1980s through an arms race. This is what ended the Soviet Union. It drove, the Soviet economy was in trouble to begin with, then they engaged in an arms race that they could not win with us because we outspent them. We accomplished something very similar in the last 10 years by colluding with Saudi Arabia to drop oil prices, which took away a lot of their profits. And although it did not wreck the Russian economy, it certainly did not help it. The real issue, however, and the part that we have to stop and think about is, neither us, hopefully, nor the Russians are going to start a civil or nuclear war. Neither is China, neither is, to a lesser degree, someplace like India or Pakistan.
Right.
Although Pakistan is a danger area because the Taliban, the Pakistani Taliban, getting their hands on a nuclear weapon through some sort of collusion is one of the dangers. North Korea is a danger. Some of these other smaller states that now are starting to compete are a danger. But does it really matter whether we have enough nuclear weapons, either us or the Russians, to destroy the entire world 5 times over or 6 times over? So and the reason we disarmed at the end of the Cold War, quote unquote, whether it ended or not, is, first of all, the maintenance for all these weapons is ridiculously expensive.
Right.
And second of all, what's the point? Once you have enough nuclear weapons to wipe out all life on Earth,
you don't need any more.
Then doing it multiple times really doesn't accomplish anything.
Why do you think they're looking now to speed it up? Or are they speeding it up to have more, or are they doing it to ensure what we have is far more capable, engineering-wise or technology-wise, to deal with modern times?
Well, you know, something to keep in mind, like Colin said, is the maintenance on some of these weapons is extremely expensive. In some cases, it's going to be cheaper to manufacture new weapons than it is to maintain the current ones, especially when, you know, you've got aging nukes that are sitting in silos somewhere and they're old, they're rusted. I'd be half afraid to fire some of them if we actually needed to.
Well, but the reality is you're not producing more nuclear weapons, you're upgrading the delivery systems.
Right.
So the warheads themselves, I guarantee, are being maintained because the last thing that even the Russians would allow to have happen if they had any druthers over it would be to have a disastrous failure of the containment on one particular nuclear weapon, which wouldn't necessarily result in an explosion, but it would result in a huge release of fissile material.
What was it that Reagan wanted to develop with a defense system?
Well, the Star Wars.
Star Wars
Yeah, the
program.
Star Wars. Do you see that happening now?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's, well, of course, the question is, has it already happened, actually? But, I mean, we've got government programs that, you and I know nothing about other than, hey, they launch stuff up in space and then it comes back down later and we don't know what was actually on it, but,
And hey, a certain percentage of our taxes goes into nothing.
Right, you really think they pay $100 for a toilet seat? That's, no, of course not. Some
But
of
the
that
money
money's
is going to
somewhere else.
Yeah, it's not.
But it's not all going for that
yeah.
toilet seat.
Let's be fair about this. A government has a certain right to have secret military projects that are not going to be released to the public,
Absolutely.
even in a democracy. So I think that part of it we have to be a little bit more pragmatic on. My basic point in this whole discussion, however, is I don't understand what benefit, aside from some short-term industrial benefit, because you're spurring growth in the companies that manufacture these systems. But aside from that, I don't understand what the rationale behind the point was. To your point, Ken, I think that, and yours as well, Ron, creating the deterrent systems and the defense systems to stop ballistic missiles is probably much more beneficial to our national security than, again, boosting our ability to destroy the world once more over.
How about employment? How about the jobs that it's going to create? The jobs that were done away with, which puts your unemployment rate up higher. How about the president-elect saying, I'm going to bring a lot of manufacturing back? Is it going to be on things that are totally military-based, as they have been in the past? How about the people that supported him, the different states, and the employment that they have in those states that deal with defense, that deal with that type of
Again,
thing?
that military spending can be had in multiple areas. So if we wanted to boost, and I think that there's an argument to be made in certainly maintaining our military strength. You have a Russia that is resurgent and is certainly investing more in its military. You have a China that is investing tremendously more in their military, in terms of their military budget. We do have to maintain. We have an aging fleet of fighter planes. We have an aging fleet, to some smaller degree, of naval vessels. We have a main battle tank that at this point is 20 some odd years old. There is a definite potential for us to be investing in and improving a lot of these systems. I just don't necessarily, I don't see the logic behind focusing on the nuclear piece.
There is a silver lining in all this. The silver lining is DoD does have something that's called a technology transfer program. And what that allows them to do is it allows you to take wartime developed whatever and actually find a peacetime application for it, and they will actually transfer that technology, patents and everything, to the private sector so they can implement it.
Well, and that was the cause for a lot of our technological development over the last 7 years.
So let's hope that any new manufacturing, we find some peacetime applications as well.
I've always wanted to have a nuclear warhead in my fridge.
Well, I'd like a nuclear powered.
Is that a Second Amendment right?
You never know. But Ron, your wit gets the last word on that one. Next up on the flip side, our panel weighs in on Donald Trump's fight in the war on terror. Stay tuned.